Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ellis, and today I'm joined by John from the True Faith Newcastle United podcast to do the opposition view on Newcastle versus Everton on Tuesday night. How are we doing, John?
Yeah, good mate, all good.
Yeah, so today we're hoping we can finally talk about a game where Everton are going to win this time. We haven't won in 12 games, John, so Evertonians are feeling a bit down at the minute, to be honest. So let's talk about your team first, because we all a bit worried about Everton, to be honest. Tell us about Newcastle. How's it been recently? Of course, that massive result when you turn it around to win 4-3 at the weekend, and it has been a bit of a weird season for you, but maybe is that the start of a resurgence and a chase towards the top six?
Hope so. I think seventh is probably a little bit more realistic. I think we've been consistently inconsistent this year, and I think that's been our problem. But we have had, and I know lots of teams will say this, but we've had like ridiculous bad luck with injuries, which has really hit us. And I'm sure we'll get on to him later, but Anthony Gordon kicking the ball away in the 90 something plus minute to get booked a second time and miss Tuesday night. He's been one of our best players this year, and as I say, I'm sure we'll get on to him. But that it's just another absence that we don't need really. So I think the result was great. The last 20 minutes we were excellent. The first 70 we were dreadful. And I think this is it. We need to approach the game with the right mindset from the start and really do what we can do. And look, I think if we show up and do what we can do, Alice, with the greatest respect, we'll win. But you saw a snapshot in December, what can happen when we don't turn up, how bad can go wrong. And defensively, we've been a bit all over the place this year.
Yeah, it seems like at times you can just go and suddenly let three in a game. I think it's 10 occasions this season you've let in at least three goals, which that isn't the Newcastle that we were used to last season. And I think a lot of the inconsistency surely can be put down to injuries. You look at the team now and the squad's been decimated, hasn't it? You see Jamal Lascelles has now done his ACL as well. And you're going into this game really with a depleted defense, aren't you? And even, I suppose, depleted attack, losing Anthony Gordon as well.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, yeah, you don't want to lose Anthony Gordon with the form he's been in this year. And even games where maybe he hasn't looked like he's going to influence it, he's got assists or he's scored goals. Like, is from a numbers point of view, Gordon's been excellent this year, but I think consistently he's looked like our best player. In terms of defense, you're right, we're totally depleted. Maybe Kieran Trippier's back Tuesday night. We don't know yet.
Right.
Um, but no Lascelles, no Botman. I think Livermore was probably out. So lots of questions about what our back four might look like. A lot of clamour for Lewis Hall to start at left back, who's not had a lot of game time this year, despite the fact that we've brought him in on loan. A lot of talk about what he's for the future. Um, Eddie Howe was asked a lot about this earlier in the season, why Hall wasn't featuring as much, and basically the answer he gave was defensively they weren't sure about him just at that stage, and they wanted to
Right.
work on him a little bit more. He looked excellent when he came on, and I think he was one of him and Harvey Barnes coming off the bench were probably the deciding factors in us going on to win on Saturday. I think Harvey Barnes will start as well. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. And to be fair, I'd be knocking on the manager's door on Wednesday morning if I didn't start after what he did on
Definitely.
Saturday. So yeah, I think that's the thing. It's kind of like I mean, our back four probably is going to be Hall, Burn, Share, and well, God, who knows at right back? I think it's getting to that stage, really.
Yeah, it's mad that, isn't it? That you're actually trying to piece together some sort of back four that can play against us. That's just like it's terrible what's happened. I don't know why the injuries seem to be all flying at you this season, but we know you play an intense style of football. And I think not only does that mean injuries are more likely, but also when you get injuries, I think that massively affects Newcastle's performance, doesn't it? Because you have those players who are real workhorses and engines, and I imagine the players in the second string haven't quite got that. You know, your Joe Lintons and Almirons and that. These kind of players, you need them in the team to just make sure that everyone's at that intensity, don't you? So I think it's really difficult when you have so many injuries. But you're playing Everton at a pretty good time. We haven't won in 12 games now, which is the longest run in 29 years without a win. So you mentioned earlier that we beat you 3-0 in that week, and that was the 10th of December, and the last time we won a game was the 16th of December. So maybe it's a good time to play us. Are you feeling very confident then? I'd expect.
I wish. I never, you know what it is. As a Newcastle fan, I don't think I ever feel very confident going into a game. I think of the three games that we were playing this week, I think the West Ham game was probably the one we needed the result in the most. Because they're that close to us in the league. So actually, by winning 3 points, we take 3 points off them. It
Yeah,
means that their qualification is in our hands. Now, we're not going to do a Man City and win, our last 9 games on the bounce, I don't think. But we are going to have to probably average at least 2 points a game now, between now and the end of the season if we're, serious about, um, getting that European spot. Um, yeah, I think from Everton's point of view, I mean, I saw the stat that you hadn't won in. I think is it you've drawn five and
yeah.
you've not won in that period of time. Yeah, and that did surprise us a bit because yeah, you have been inconsistent. But look, you had a 6 point deduction this year, and you don't look like you're going to go down. Now I know there's potentially more action to come, and this is the problem. You don't want games, you don't want seasons decided, on judgmental panels or whatever you want to call them. But it is one of those ones where you look at it and you go, if you were that bad, you'd be gone. Do you know what I mean? And I think a
Yeah.
lot. I certainly outside thought that you'd be fighting relegation this year. The thing that I think has really saved you bacon is that Burnley and Sheffield United have shown that they don't belong in this league, and will comprehensively go down. I think Luton have been great. They've been entertaining. But you can't go away to St James's Park and score 4 goals and not come away with 3 points.
Yeah,
They've scored. There's been too many games where they've scored so many goals, and they've conceded too many as well. So they're almost at that other end, and they may just scrape up. Forest, obviously are there or thereabouts, and I think they've really regressed, and I don't think they've looked much better since Nuno's come in, though they did get that victory at St James's on Boxing Day. So look, I think your saving grace this year might be that there are just 3 or 4 teams that are worse than you, even when you put the points deductions in. But I think you obviously as a club at this point you're in a really tricky spot, and I hope for your sake. I know Mashiri's not amazing, but I think the last thing you need is this 777 group taking over because something just smells off with that, mate. It really does.
It's such a difficult spot to be in as Evertonians, and I'm sure you'll resonate with us because you were going through something very similar, weren't you? Before, and to see what Newcastle have done since, it really gives Evertonians hope that we can then have that kind of explosion of positivity that you guys had at the time, have that amazing season, and then you've started to kind of build on that as well. Hopefully this season you can go and get Europe again just to continue it, and then start fresh. Hopefully in a season where you don't get half as many injuries as you've had, but the fact that we're set to be hit with 2 point deductions in the same season, just it really does put us on the back foot. And I'm so glad that we won the 4 games in a row that we did in December, including the one against you guys, because without that, now we really would be deep in it. And we're set to hear another verdict, maybe this week, maybe next week. And that'll probably be maybe 2 points, I imagine, but it just doesn't help, does it really? And on the pitch is probably the main problem at the minute because at the end of the day, if we were winning football matches, it wouldn't matter that points deduction. And hey, we've
Yeah.
not won in 12, so even if we'd won 4 of them, 3 of them, we wouldn't be in the danger we're in. So we have to start winning, and I hope it comes at St James's Park, but I'm not too confident. The way that I expect to see the game go is I imagine we'll try and sit in. I hope that we have a bit of a better plan than we did against Bournemouth because we look like we'd completely run out of ideas against Bournemouth. We need one of those early season away performances that we've had where we are staying in the game, but also when we get it, we need to use it well. And a lot of Evertonians are starting to look at the manager and think, are there that many, I suppose, like tactical plans, passages of play. We're not seeing too many of them now. So Blues are getting quite worried about it. So I'm just hoping we can see some sort of plan going there to try and break you guys down because seeing that depleted defence, I think we should start on the front foot and try and get ahead early because we've seen with Everton this season, when they score first, they do a hell of a lot better. So I don't really want us to sit back too much and just let you play because I've been to St James's multiple times in recent years. And when that crowd gets going, when you start having a flurry of chances and you really start to sustain that pressure, that's the point where other teams just crumble. And I think for you guys, you'll be thinking, can we get that started early, won't you?
It's right. So it's this is a really interesting one, style of play, because I think that well, West Ham were doing exactly that on Saturday. They were sitting in and then they were hitting us on the counter attack, and that took them from being 1-0 down to 3-1 up in the space of 50 minutes of gameplay. Right. When we played Wolves at home, we sat in, we let Wolves have the ball, we let them create chances, we trusted our defence would be able to hold on, and then we hit them on the break, and it was a very comfortable win. Um, and my feeling is that we may try a similar tactic on Tuesday night. Now, I hear your point on the whole depleted defence argument, um, but for that reason, I think that's why we probably need to be a little bit more. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but a bit more conservative, I suppose.
Yeah,
Because I think when we do go forward, we do have the quality. And I know people hate XG as a stat generally, but I think one thing XG tells you is how clinical teams are, and we're pretty much on par. So for every XG point we get, we've got a goal pretty much.
yeah,
There's only there's only two teams that scored more goals than us this year. I think we scored the same amount of goals as Man City this year. So we are capable of scoring and getting creating chances, but then also being clinical with them. Um, so it's going to be an interesting way to see how Dyche sets up. But I kind of tend to agree. I think if you get that first goal on the break, it could be frustrating. It could be difficult, and I think that's what you need. You need the crowd to get on Newcastle's back a bit. And they did that on Saturday for 70 minutes, and that's the bit that doesn't kind of come out in the press really. That really the ground was pretty toxic for about an hour or so. It felt there
really.
was a bit of apathy that set in. The penalty you got given, all of a sudden will go 3-2, and there's almost this belief that goes back into the players and into the crowd, and the momentum completely changed. So yeah, I don't know if I would be as Dyche saying, throw it all at them and try and get a goal. I think it might be a bit of a fight between the two of who wants to sit back the most and who wants to then try and hit on the counter the most, and then take it from there.
Yeah, that will make for a very interesting game then. Well, I know that Newcastle have been
Yeah,
involved in the games with the most goals this season, but we've scored some of the least. And when you said that about the Wolves game, actually, I can see that working for Newcastle. If you let us play, then that is the absolute worst thing we could possibly have to experience. Because when we have the ball, we do not have many ideas really. We don't in reality. And when you've got a striker who hasn't scored in 22 games and players who in general are really lacking confidence, I think giving us the ball and forcing us to create will be massively difficult for Everton. And I think the counter attack side of things, if you did go at us, I don't think there's as much risk if you throw everything at Everton than if you throw everything at West Ham because they obviously had Lucas Paqueta in the midfield. He was playing those balls over the top, wasn't he, to Antonio? And we just don't have that
yeah.
pace on the break that they have. They have a lot of players who can really create something out of nothing, the likes of Mohamed Kudus. We just don't seem to have that at the minute. If we had Arnaut Danjuma fit, I might have been a bit more positive in the sense that we can hit you on the break with a bit of pace, but I'm not sure we can with what we've got at the minute. But we have got some quality players there just waiting to hit form again, really. And we saw that at Goodison this season when we won 3-0. And players like Abdoulaye Doucouré were really on form that day. Dwight McNeil played well. And these players are struggling at the moment, but we need something just to inject that bit of positivity back into them to get them on good form. So if you're looking at the players we've got, who is it that you are worried about, if any?
It's hard, really. I think it's hard for me
It's
just to kind of
hard.
single out and say, yeah, there's a couple of players. Well, it is. No, it is. I think I mean, to be honest, from my perspective, I think Doucouré's looks is looks your biggest threat. He seems to be the one that seems to pop up with important goals. Um, I think I'm not as Calvert-Lewin's a quality player, but is either injured or off form, or struggling to get back to form. Beto, I think, just kind of has spells of looking world beater and not interested. So I think a lot of the time it depends what version of these players actually turn up and how
Yeah, yeah.
motivated they are. Um, and I think I do look at it and I go, if only we'd had, if we had Anthony Gordon, that could have been. I mean, it could have worked the other way. And I think the other thing that works in our favour as well is that Pickford seems to wind himself up for this game because
Oh, he
obviously he's a
does. Yeah.
massive Sunderland fan, and he gets over emotional with the game, and to the point where I think was it Ancelotti who didn't play him for a derby at St James,
I think it
not a
might have been,
derby.
yeah. One time he
Didn't
has
play him against.
been taken out.
Yeah, he got taken out, and for me, it was clear why that was. It's because he's too like emotionally involved in the game, I
Yeah.
suppose, and it's about kind of having that maturity. And I say he's having that maturity. What's he 30 now? Like you would have thought
He's an experienced
it'd landed
goalkeeper
by
now, isn't
now,
he?
but oh yeah, he is, and don't get me wrong. Look, he's a good player, but I think sometimes that can get to him. Um, we've started. There's a dinosaur costume in the home end last
What's the
season, and
odds?
I wouldn't be surprised if the same. I know I wouldn't be surprised if the same kind of antics came out and the same kind of stick is thrown at him to see whether he can handle it or not. Because any edge he can get is going to help you in a game, isn't it?
That's it. You may as well, mightn't you? Because if you know that that's a weakness, and he can, we've seen it before where he's lost his head completely at St James's Park, and there's been times more recently where he's seemed to keep his head a little bit more. So I don't expect he'd get dropped for the game this time around, but it just is that thing that you worry about. If we do go behind, is his head going to go? It doesn't go in any other fixture now. He really has matured as a goalkeeper, but fingers crossed for us, it doesn't go wrong for him there. But I think that almost that rivalry between him and your fans has created a bit of needle in the fixture in general, hasn't it? Now suddenly both sides look at this game and don't really like each other. I know on our side we like to think that you guys have forged this rivalry and we don't really see it as a rivalry, but also we don't really like you guys that much at the moment anymore because of what you guys think of as the game. So there is a bit of tension now between the two sides, isn't there?
Yeah, but I've never really understood it. Like I don't get where it's come from. I mean, I've had bad away days at Everton, mostly because the away end is horrible. You can't see anything. Like, so I'll just to the last time I was, it was a long time ago. So I was there 2008 at the end of the season, last day of the season.
Yeah.
Michael Owen scored a penalty. I had to choose whether I was going to stand somewhere where I could see Michael Owen strike the ball, or whether I was going to stand somewhere I could see the net bulge or not,
On either
because
side of a pillar,
because
was
of kind of what
it?
basically, yeah. So it's an absolutely horrendous view from that away end. And I think that's for me. If I dislike Everton, it's not because of what Everton is as a club or what it stands for. It's probably more just the negative experiences of aways, and that tends to kind of dictate me opinions, I think, on clubs generally. But yeah, there is a bit of an odd. I've heard the term Scouse Mackems. I just don't get it. I don't get where this rivalry's come from, and maybe some of it is driven by Pickford, but like I don't. I'll be in the nicest way. I don't care. My mum's other half, he's an Evertonian, so if anything, I kind of have a little bit more of a soft spot for them because of that. And I'd like to see us do like, relatively okay as long as it doesn't kind of it doesn't impact us, I suppose. But yeah, there are some members of our fan base. You never know how big this cross section is. Social media can amplify things more than maybe they are real. But there is a section who, for some reason, see this as a big game or a club that we generally dislike.
I suppose it's just really, if you bring it right down to the bare bones of it, it's two big clubs who should be in a better position than they are. And you guys have took steps
Yeah.
towards getting back to where you belong. And we are currently at a point where we're hoping that in the future we can take steps. But at the moment, there's a big gulf between the two sides. And we look at Newcastle and we're pleased to see that you can get out of the mess that you were in because it gives us hope. But also, I imagine in some sections of the fan base, there'll be a bit of jealousy there as well. We're looking at like, why can't that be us kind of thing? And you mentioned the away end. Well, I'll be in the away end at St James's and on Tuesday, and wow, that is quite a high away end to say the least. I think I've been four times now, and you're very high. It's safe to say if we try and give any of the Newcastle players any stick, they probably won't even hear it because we're right in the clouds up there, and them steps are a killer.
They are. They are. Well, I sit in the family enclosure normally, which is basically around. It's still going up to level 7,
Really?
and it's about halfway up.
Yeah.
So I know what those stairs are like. I do them at least 6 or 7 times a year.
Score prediction time now. Let's properly put our necks on the line and see if I'm going to back my team in this time. I don't know. I can't say I'm feeling confident to be honest, but I'll let you go first. Give us a prediction.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 2-1 Newcastle. I think. I think you get the first goal. I think we come back to win it. Potentially as dramatic as Saturday. I think we'll just have enough when we go forward. I think we will take our chances. I think we'll muddle through, but I think with the makeshift defense we've got, I think it's prone to at least one mistake. So
Right.
I'll keep the faith, but I'll say 2-1.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think I'd be surprised if we scored. And I always back Everton on the opposition view. I'm always very positive about it. But maybe if I don't back us, we might get a result. So I think today I'm going to go with 2-0 Newcastle. And it's the first time I've not backed at least a draw for Everton here. So maybe this is the time where we win. Evertonians, I'm trying this out. If it works, then we might have to do it every week. But yeah, that's the prediction for me. I just can't really see us getting anything. I think the bigger game probably for us is Burnley at the weekend. And this has just been put in at an awful time for us really to be on that Tuesday night. But before I let you go, mate, I've got some quick fire questions to fire at you. Is that all right?
Yeah, go for it.
Right, so I want some league predictions, okay? So I want your league winner. I want to know where Newcastle are finishing, and I want the bottom three. So be careful with that one.
Right, league winner. My heart says Arsenal. My head says Liverpool. I'm sorry.
Wow,
League position for Newcastle. I think we're going to finish seventh. Bottom three. I'm going to go with Burnley, Sheffield United, and I'm going to go Nottingham Forest.
interesting. I find that interesting that you're picking between Arsenal and Liverpool, and no mention of Man City there.
I just don't think there is. I think I watched the game yesterday. I don't know if you did, but like I'm never going to get. Well, I watched the second half. I'm never going to get that 45 minutes back. It
Terrible
was
game.
really poor, and And I mean, the Man City that we visited in the FA Cup just looked like they were conditioned and that they were going to go on and they were going to win. Um, I think they've in the last few seasons they've just gone on this run and they've managed to do enough to win it. Um, Liverpool have been very good at getting results, even when maybe they probably shouldn't have done. Including 2-1 at our place. We were
Oh yeah,
1-0 up. They were down to 10 men after half an hour, and somehow we conspired to lose that. And Darwin Núñez, of all people, scores a brace. So
yeah.
I just think they've got something in them. I think there's that obviously there's that underlining story with Klopp as well. I certainly think they win the Europa League. And they're certainly in with a shout at the Premier League because they're still managing to rotate in that Europa League. And yeah, Man City were a great team. Don't get me wrong, but I think Arsenal have looked better this year. I think they're set up better this year. I think Declan Rice has made a massive difference to them. Um, but I just think there's something about Liverpool this year, and I think they'll probably do it. And again, I really apologise for having that opinion.
It's looking like one of the best title races we've seen for a while. Evertonians here will be hoping that Liverpool drop off and it's just Man City versus Arsenal shootout, but we'll have to see. Last one as well. Can you tell me about a time when you met someone famous? Could be a footballer, it can be anything.
Yeah, so years and years ago, I used to work. So at college, I did technical production. So I did like backstage theatre. And Jill Halfpenny was doing the. I don't know if you remember who she is, but she won Strictly Come Dancing like
All
the
right.
year or two before that. But she's a Geordie, and she was famous with Bite Grove, and then she was on EastEnders for a few years as Phil Mitchell's girlfriend for a bit.
All right.
But she was in the panto that year, so met her several days. It was about a 6 week run or something like that. But
Is it
lovely
fellow
woman.
Newcastle fan as well, is it? Or
Yeah, probably. I didn't ask her, but it's kind of a law up here, isn't it? Like, so let's be honest. 95% of people born up here end up supporting Newcastle. But yeah, very much so.
One Club City, isn't it? I suppose. But make sure you check out the True Faith Newcastle United podcast, guys. Thanks so much for coming on today, John.
No, it's a pleasure, Ellis. Thanks for having me.
But that is all for the opposition view today. Everton travel to St James's Park on the Tuesday night. Slightly worried, I have to say, but fingers crossed Everton can finally turn this really difficult run around and get that victory. Please do leave a like if you've enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments what you think. Is this the game where Everton end that winless run and get back on the right track? We'll see. Thanks very much for watching. See you later.